I wasn't looking to change jobs. In fact, I was quite content where I was working quietly at a modest data firm with a close-knit team and enough challenges to keep me intellectually stimulated. Life was steady, predictable. That is, until one unassuming Tuesday morning, I received a message on LinkedIn that would upend everything. It wasn't from a recruiter or an agency. It came directly from Arthur Davenport, the CEO of a tech giant, Innovate Dynamics. The message was short and cryptic, almost like a scene out of a corporate spy thriller. Miss Miller, I've been following your professional trajectory with interest. I have a unique and highly confidential business proposition to discuss. Discretion is critical. Are you available for a private meeting? I must have read it 5 times. There was something intriguing about the message, its brevity, its formality, the mystery it hinted at. Curiosity outweighed caution. I replied yes. We didn't meet in an office tower or one of those sleek glass boardrooms you'd expect from a company like his. Instead, he invited me to a hushed, old-school hotel bar downtown, dimly lit, mahogany decor, the kind of place where business gets done off the books. He was already there when I arrived, sitting with perfect posture, dressed in a charcoal gray suit that looked handmade. His expression was composed but alert, his sharp eyes scanning me like he was already reading my RSUM from memory. Jessica, he said smoothly, swirling the ice in his glass, Innovate Dynamics has a leak. I blinked. A leak? Not data, he clarified. Something worse. Productivity. Integrity. I have a flagship division, our data analytics team. It's the jewel of the company. But for over a year, they've been underwhelming. Projects delayed, budgets overshot, promises missed. He paused, leaning in slightly. And yet, one employee always seems to rise above the rubble with perfect reviews and glowing recognition. His name is Mark Peterson. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it to find a pristine personnel file. Mark's corporate headshot stared back at me, all teeth and confidence. Sarah, his manager, thinks he walks on water. On paper, he's a star. But my instincts tell me something is rotten. The numbers don't lie, and they don't add up. And you want me to investigate? I asked slowly. Not just investigate, he replied. Infiltrate. My breath caught. I want you on the inside, Arthur continued. You'll be hired as a data analyst. Officially, you'll just be a new team member. But unofficially, your mission is to let Mark take your work. Hand it to him. Let him present it as his own. Document everything. Give me undeniable proof. I don't want suspicion. I want a firing offense ironclad and bulletproof. He said it like he'd already weighed every outcome. In return, you'll receive double your current salary. And if your operation is successful, a completion bonus substantial enough to change your life. I stared at him. I wasn't a spy. I was a data scientist. And yet, I thought about all the times I'd seen brilliant minds get buried under louder voices. I thought about how many Marks I'd met over the years. Maybe it was time one of them got what they deserved. 2 weeks later, I walked into the headquarters of Innovate Dynamics as their newest analyst. Officially, a quiet addition to the team. Unofficially, the start of a 9-month sting operation, and the target didn't even know I was coming. Innovate Dynamics was the kind of place that gleamed glass walls, perfectly angled lighting, the faint scent of expensive upholstery and corporate ambition. On my first day, Sarah, the team's manager, welcomed me with a tired but bright smile. She seemed genuinely kind, though frazzled. She introduced me around, barely glancing at the org chart as she shuffled between meetings, and gave vague explanations of where I'd fit in. It was clear she was too overwhelmed to track who did what or how deeply. And then came Mark Peterson. He was the golden boy, just as Arthur Davenport had worn, smiling, magnetic, dripping with polished charm. He came striding over like he already owned the room, that kind of confident walk that made people look twice. Jessica, he beamed, extending a firm hand. Welcome to the team. So glad to have you on board. If you need anything at all, just ask. We're all about collaboration here. That last word lingered in the air like the scent of expensive cologne. Collaboration. He said it like it was his personal motto. I smiled, nodded, and played the eager new hire to perfection. I was assigned a desk near his, strategically placed to observe his daily rhythm. For the first week, I played my part, quiet, diligent, helpful. I let myself blend in. And Mark wasted no time. Our first team meeting was a revelation. The topic was improving regional data analysis. As everyone tossed ideas around, I chimed in casually. What if we tried cross-referencing user engagement with regional sales data? We might find some latent trends. Sarah nodded absently, scribbling in her notebook. Mark, however, tilted his head. 5 minutes later, he spoke with enthusiasm. Actually, you know what I've been thinking? What if we dove into the overlap between regional performance and user interaction? I could spearhead a quick report on that. Might be something really valuable there. Sarah looked up. I love that, Mark. Very proactive. And just like that, my idea had a new name on it. That was the beginning. From there, it became routine. I'd draft code to automate complex report generation, tedious, mind-numbing logic that took hours. Mark would swing by, ask to take a quick look, and the next morning I'd hear him telling Sarah, whipped up this automation last night, thought it might save us some time. My dashboard designs? Same story. He'd ask to review then, showcase a carbon copy to the client as his own. Each time, I smiled and nodded like a good junior analyst. But I was watching, recording, compiling. On a secure thumb drive I carried with me daily, I kept a private audit log, date, time, description, original file, and evidence of theft. I backed it all up, source code, drafts, screenshots, emails with timestamps, every breadcrumb he left behind. And Mark, he never suspected a thing. He loved to play mentor, loved to wrap his arm around my shoulder by the coffee machine, whispering things like, your mock-up really inspired me, Jess. It was a great jumping off point. Collaboration, right? We make a great team. I kept smiling, but inside, I was carving a path to his undoing. Sarah, meanwhile, only saw what Mark wanted her to see: a star performer with initiative and flair. She didn't notice how often he regurgitated my language or how our project files always passed through him last, just before a deadline. She was exhausted and grateful for what she thought was Mark's consistency. I was the ghost in the system, invisible, logging every stolen idea and every act of gaslighting. The more he took, the stronger my case became. And he was greedy. He thought he was climbing toward a promotion, but every step he took was built on stolen work, and I was the one holding the ledger. Soon, the perfect opportunity would come, and Mark would take it just like he always did. 3 months into the job, the opportunity came just as I knew it would. Innovate Dynamics announced a high-stakes, high-visibility project internally codenamed Project Phoenix. It was a complete overhaul of our logistics systems for our biggest and most high-profile client, the kind of project that turned analysts into executives. It was all anyone could talk about, and before anyone could so much as blink, Mark jumped at the chance. I'll take lead, he said with that trademark grin. During a team meeting, already got a few strategies brewing in my head. Sarah practically clapped. Great initiative, Mark. Let's make this your proving ground. It was handed to him, just like that. And I could see it in his eyes, the hunger, the self-satisfaction. He thought he'd already won. He saw a promotion, a corner office, maybe even a fast track to VP. All he had to do was keep doing what he'd always done, ride on someone else's back to the finish line. This time, that someone was me. For the next 3 months, I lived inside Project Phoenix. I mean, lived. Late nights, weekends, holidays, I poured everything I had into building the architecture from the ground up. Mountains of raw logistics data, legacy systems with fragile APIs, complex models that had to integrate in real time. Without a hitch, I solved every one of them, line by line, query by query. And Mark, he became the manager. The guy who scheduled the check-ins, who checked progress by hovering over my desk and asking, all good, twice a day. His real contribution was collecting summaries of my work and sending them to Sarah under the subject lines like, Phoenix Update Big Breakthroughs. He didn't understand a single component of the codebase. He couldn't explain the predictive model if his life depended on it, but he carried himself like the architect of innovation, and I let him. Every day, he stole more of my work, and every day, my case file grew thicker, now nearing 200 pages. Timestamped code commits, draft versions, recorded screen captures of him asking for materials, and most satisfying of all, complete records showing him repackaging my emails to make them look like his own updates. He wasn't just stealing anymore. He was digging his own grave with golden spoons. 1 week before the final presentation to the executive board, Arthur Davenport included Mark was visibly jittery. This was his big moment, the dress rehearsal before the promotion. And like clockwork, he showed up at my desk one evening. I was deep into diagnostics, verifying final load tests. "Hey Jess," he said, trying to sound relaxed, "just heading out for the night. But before I go, can you do me a huge favor? Package everything up for me, the deck, the code, the models, the data, all of it. Just want to give it a last glance tonight. Prep for Friday, you know?" His smile didn't even flicker with shame. "Of course, Mark," I replied sweetly. "You'll have it within the hour." The moment he left, I zipped up everything clean, elegant, ready to present. I labeled it Project Phoenix Final Files, zip, and send it to his inbox. Then I opened another email window. The recipient, Arthur Davenport. His private address, subject line, "Final delivery buddy text, Mr. Davenport. The bait has been taken. The trap is set. See you Friday." Jessica Larry attached my 200-page evidence dossier, complete with source files, code comparisons, screenshots, and an authorship note for every major feature. Then I attached the real Project Phoenix deck mine. I hit send. For the first time in months, I left work before 7 p.m. The air felt lighter. My fingers were sore, but my shoulders, weightless. I didn't just set a trap. I built the fire he'd walk into. Friday arrived like a storm front, still on the outside, but you could feel the pressure in the air. I wore a clean, professional navy dress. Subtle, elegant, controlled. Mark? He strutted into the office like it was his coronation day. A brand new, custom suit, gleaming shoes, and enough aftershave to signal confidence from 3 floors away. He paraded through the office, shaking hands, grinning like a man already composing his promotion speech. He even stopped by my desk. "Big day, Jess," he said, eyes gleaming. "Wish me luck." I smiled. "Oh, I have a feeling today's going to be unforgettable." We made our way up to the 32nd floor executive boardroom level. The room itself was massive, all glass walls and a 12-foot mahogany table stretching out under a vaulted ceiling. The skyline gleamed behind the city's power players, senior VPs, division heads, and at the very end of the table, Arthur Davenport. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. Mark stood at the front, remote in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "it's an honor to present the future of our logistics platform, Project Phoenix." The lights dimmed. His deck appeared on the massive screen. My deck, my color scheme, my formatting, my exact speaker notes, and then he launched into it, confident, poised, authoritative. Every word a rehearsed version of my work. I identified a redundancy in the shipment routing protocol. I streamlined the supply chain modeling using predictive engagement scores. I estimate a savings of $15 million in the first year alone. The boardroom nodded. Some took notes. Sarah, our team lead, beamed with pride. She probably thought this presentation alone would rocket her entire division forward. Mark was halfway through slide 37 when it happened. Arthur Davenport leaned forward, hands steepled. "Impressive," he said. "One question." The room went still. Mark straightened. "Of course." Arthur's voice was quiet, surgical. "On slide 37, you mentioned the use of an MV variant subroutine to duplicate the legacy dataset. Could you walk us through the logic of that subroutine?" Mark blinked. Arthur continued, "Specifically, why you chose a recursive loop over an iterative one. What constraints of the fragmented legacy system justified that design choice?" The silence was loud. Mark stammered. "Well, recursion was more, efficient. It handled the, Arthur didn't blink. "Please include time complexity." Big O notation. Mark's mouth opened and closed like a puppet with broken strings. His face, flushed a moment ago with pride, now paled with confusion. He looked toward Sarah, then toward me, desperate. He found no help, just a wall of silent, expectant stares. Finally, Arthur leaned back. "That will be all, Mark." He stood, now addressing the entire room. "For the past 9 months, Innovate Dynamics has been conducting a discrete internal audit focused on integrity and intellectual property misuse. An auditor was embedded within the analytics division. Now the tension hit like a wave. Sarah sat up straight, eyes wide. A VP scribbled something down. A few others exchanged wary glances. Arthur turned to me. "Jessica, would you be willing to explain the MV subroutine's logic?" I stood, calmly, clearly. I walked them through the function, its recursion structure, its purpose in memory optimization, the trade-offs, the rationale, the math. The room was silent when I sat back down. There was no mistaking it now. I was the architect, the analyst, the mind. Mark was a shell. Arthur's tone turned glacial. Mark, we have time-stamped records, original authored files, server logs, and communications that confirm consistent theft of work not created by you. You have presented work done by Jessica Miller as your own. He motioned subtly, and two men in black suits appeared by the door. Security, your employment with Innovate Dynamics is terminated, effective immediately. Mark tried to speak, but no words came out. His suit, his armor suddenly looked childish, powerless. He looked at Sarah, at the executives, at me, and then, without a word, he was escorted from the room. That door clicked shut behind him with all the finality of a slamming gavel. Arthur turned back to the boardroom. Well, he said, now, about the future of Project Phoenix. Jessica, I believe the role of senior project manager is open. Would you be willing to accept the promotion? The room was stunned. Sarah looked at me with dawning horror and something else, respect. The VPs nodded, as if they were seeing me clearly for the first time. I smiled, a real smile. Yes, I'd be honored. After the boardroom showdown, the rest of the day passed in a blur. My desk was no longer just a desk, it was now the workstation of Innovate Dynamics' new senior project manager. Mark's nameplate had been removed. His desk, once the epicenter of smug grins and hollow leadership, sat eerily silent, a monument to arrogance undone. Sarah approached me cautiously in the afternoon, her demeanor completely changed. Gone was the boss who'd once treated me like a junior tag-along to Mark's leadership. In her place was someone deeply rattled, humbled, and though she didn't say it, relieved. I should have seen it, she murmured, hands clasped. Avoiding my eyes, I let myself get blinded by his confidence. I let him dominate the spotlight and I let it happen. I didn't say anything at first. I let the silence stretch. Not for punishment, but for truth to settle in. Finally, I replied, we all wanted to believe he was the real thing. That doesn't make us fools. It just means we trusted the wrong storyteller. Her eyes welled up a bit. He was stealing everything from you, and I applauded him for it. You weren't the only one, I said, kindly but firmly. But I had a job to do, and I did it. Then I stood up, extending a hand. What matters now is where we go from here. She shook my hand, a little shakily. I hope you'll keep me on the team. You're a great manager, Sarah. You just need to trust the right people. That night, I stayed late, not out of necessity, but out of peace. For the first time in nearly a year, I wasn't burning inside. I sat by the window, the skyline aglow beneath me, sipping a coffee as I cleaned up the last remnants of the Phoenix files, and that's when I remembered. The M&M variant. It had started as a joke, a personal quirk, but now, it felt poetic, deep. Inside the subroutine that had cracked open Mark's lies, I'd named the recursive function M&M variant, Miller and memory variant, a nod to myself and a warning to any future thief clever enough to go hunting through the code. It had remained undetected the entire time, despite Mark's desperate copying, but now, it would stay there permanently. A digital fingerprint, my silent signature, a message to the universe, and maybe to people like Mark. You can steal words, you can mimic ideas, but you can't fake brilliance when brilliance is asked to explain itself. In the weeks that followed, the shift was seismic. Mr. Davenport personally introduced me to our biggest clients. He wanted them to see who the true architect of Project Phoenix was. He called me a silent scalpel in a world full of loud hammers. We launched Phoenix 3 months ahead of schedule. The system I built not only saved the company millions, it exposed outdated practices across the client's entire logistics chain. I was no longer just Jessica the data girl. I was now being asked to train senior teams, give internal talks, mentor new hires. My inbox filled with messages, not just congratulations, but confessions. Young employees in other departments told me they'd watched credit for their work vanish too, swallowed up by louder voices. They thanked me for standing up, for being the proof that the quiet ones could win, and sometimes I'd reply with just one sentence. Remember the M&M variant. Write your signature where only the worthy can see it. As for Mark, he didn't fight the termination. His name quietly disappeared from the company's memory. No lawsuits, no farewell LinkedIn post, just a ghosting from the very halls he once ruled. I heard through back channels that he'd tried applying at a few other firms, but no one bit. Apparently, word spreads fast in tech when you've been exposed at a boardroom level. I didn't hate him. I didn't even resent him anymore. He had given me the best gift of all: clarity, purpose, the validation that my work had always deserved to stand on its own. Because in the end, I didn't just outsmart a fraud, I rewrote the rules of power in my own name, and I didn't do it with noise or fury. I did it with timestamps, logic, and code, and one beautifully recursive function that bore my signature like a crown.